Hello again, everyone. This is week 2, and this is Dr. Jordan. We're talking about this week problem solving. And as you go into meetings with your clients to learn more about their problems, I think this will be very helpful for you. So please feel free to use the resources under materials for week 2, and let's get started. So one of my favorite quotes is by Albert Einstein, and it says, if I were given 1 hour to save the planet, I would spend 59 minutes defining the problem and 1 minute resolving it. So consider a company, for instance, that engages you as a consultant to find an external certification for its junior leaders. This is maybe how the conversation would go. So you would say, why do you need this external certification? And then HR would come back with, because we're now expecting our junior leaders to do things they weren't taught to do, and they need a particular certification to help them. You as the consultant would return with, why don't you replace the current leader development program that you already have? And the clients, the HR would then say, because no one is responsible for or manages the current leader development program that exactly fits our needs. This raises a deeper question. Does the company truly need an external certification, or does it need a way to make its current program better? It could be that rethinking the leader development process would give the organization a new basis for competitive advantage. And asking questions until you get to the root cause of the problem is something that we all know, but it's not something that is our default, something that we go to. So you'll see throughout, asking the 5 whys, and feel free to look that up. It's going to be highly important in solving problems within the organization. So this example, like many I've seen that you've seen, is someone literally in the guts, the bowels of the organization, and they're assigned to fix a very specific near-term problem, but because the firm or the organization doesn't employ a rigorous process for understanding the dimensions of the problem, leaders often miss an opportunity to address underlying strategic issues. Ironically, that approach is more likely to waste time and money and reduce the odds of success than one that strives at the outset to achieve an in-depth understanding of the problem and its importance to the organization. So with this in mind, we're going to go to our worksheet for this week, and we're going to look at a 4-step process, simple 4-step process for defining and articulating problems to hone in with your clients when you go in and have these first meeting. So this worksheet consists of asking a series of questions and using the answers to create a thorough problem statement. This process is important for 2 reasons that I'm going to outline now. First, it rallies the organization and other stakeholders around a shared understanding of the problem. Why should the firm even tackle this, and the level of resources that should be received. Organizations that don't engage in this process often allocate too few resources to solving major problems, or they can allocate too many to solving low priority or wrongly defined ones. So it's useful, as you can see, to assign a value to the solution, right? So an organization will be more willing to devote considerable time and resources to an effort that is shown to represent a $100 million market opportunity than to an initiative whose value is much less or is unclear. Second, the process helps an organization cast the widest possible net for potential solutions, giving internal and external experts in disparate fields the information they need to crack the problem. So let's dive into this resource that we have. Are you solving the right problem? You can find this, again, you can find it under week 2, under materials. Are you solving the right problem? So let's dive into step 1. So establish the need for a solution. The purpose of this step is to articulate the problem in the simplest terms. So we're looking for X in order to achieve Z as measured by W. So such a statement is very similar to an elevator pitch, and is a call to arms that clarifies the importance of the issue and helps secure resources to address it. So this initial framing answers 3 questions. What is the basic need? This is the essential problem stated clearly and concisely. It's important at this stage to focus on the need that's at the heart of the problem instead of jumping to a solution. So defining the scope is also very, very important. Second question, what is the desired outcome? So answering this question requires understanding the perspectives of the clients and other stakeholders. So again, the 5 whys approach can be very helpful here. So I highly encourage you to look those whys up and incorporate them in your first meeting and in your problem solving worksheet here. Also, you definitely, I cannot stress this enough, you want to avoid the temptation to favor a particular solution or approach. And you also, the questions that you're asking should be addressed qualitatively and quantitatively whenever possible. So a high level but specific goal would be improving the leadership development program to, this rating on satisfaction by 2021, or something along those lines. But this can be very helpful when you do it quantitatively and qualitatively. Next question in this series is in step 1 is who stands to benefit and why. So answering this question compels an organization to identify all the clients and other stakeholders. And it's at this stage that you understand whether, say, you're solving a CE certification problem or getting a certification problem for the leaders, or for the head or the supervisor of the entire department that the leaders work within, whose definitions of success may vary considerably, and they're very, very important. So let's go to step 2, where we talk about justifying the need. So the purpose of answering the questions in this step is to explain why your organization should attempt to even solve the problem. Why should they call you out as a consultant to even do this? Should the organization be even attempting to touch on this? So the first question in this piece is the effort aligned with our strategy, their strategy, your strategy? In other words, will satisfying the need serve the organization's strategic goals? It's not unusual for an organization to be working on problems that are no longer in sync with its strategy or mission. And so in that case, the effort and perhaps the whole initiative should be reconsidered. And you should also consider whether the problem fits with your organization's, your own personal priorities. What are the desired benefits for the company and how will we measure them? So in for-profit companies, the desired benefit could be to reach a revenue target, attain a certain market share, or even achieve specific cycle time improvements. So a benefit could be measured by, let's just say market impact, like how many families are paying for the solution, how is it affecting their lives, our sales, and what it is that you're doing. Is it creating more jobs? So going a little bit deeper there. And then the next question here is, how will we ensure that a solution is implemented? So assume that, a solution is found, right? Once you go through these questions, someone in the organization must be responsible for carrying it out, whether that means, putting in a brand new leadership development program, bringing in more certifications because maybe that is what you actually need, or even launching a new business. That person could be the problem champion, but he or she could also be the manager of an existing division, a cross-functional team, or even a new department. So, who's going to help you carry this through to the end, is basically the question. It's important at this stage to initiate a more high-level conversation in the organization about the resources a solution might require. So it can seem a little premature. After all, you're still defining the problem, and all of these possible solutions could be, very vast, but it's actually not too early to begin exploring what resources the organization you're working with is willing and able to devote to evaluating these solutions and then implementing the best one. So even at the outset, you may have, just a tiny, thought that implementing a solution will be much more expensive than others in the organization, that others in the organization realize. Sorry about that. In that case, it's important to communicate a rough estimate of the money and people that'll be required, and to make sure that the organization is, willing to continue down this path. The result of such a discussion might be that, some constraints on resourcing must be built into the problem statement. Early on, in the program, you might want to, set a cap on how much you devote to your initial research and the testing of possible solutions. So now that you've kind of laid out the need for a solution and, how important it is to the organization, you must now define the problem in detail. So this is the fun part. This involves applying a rigorous method to ensure that you've captured all the information that someone, including people in fields far removed from your industry, that they might need to solve. That your client's industry might need to solve the problem. So let's get into step 3, where we're contextualizing the problem. So examining past efforts to find a solution can save time and resources and generate highly innovative thinking. So if the problem is industry-wide, it's crucial to understand why the market has failed to address it. So what questions can you ask here? What approaches have we tried? So the aim here is to find solutions that might already exist in the organization and identify those that it has disproved. So by answering this question, you can avoid reinventing the wheel or going down a dead end. We definitely don't want to do that. So what have others tried is our next question. You have a problem that definitely needs to be solved. Have other people in this particular industry, have they solved these problems? So by doing, research into prior solutions, you may actually learn that, this kind of aligns with our goals, with our mission, with our desires, and let's give this a try. And actually even sitting down and talking to them and finding out, what went wrong, when you guys did it, and what things would you suggest that we do, and what worked really well that we should not negotiate but absolutely do. When you do it that way, it becomes very clear that there is a viable solution, especially if there's one already out there, and it gives you information on why you should pursue that. Next question within this piece here is, what are the internal and external constraints on implementing this solution? So now that you have a better idea of what you want to accomplish, it's time to revisit the issue of resources and organizational commitment. Do you have the necessary support for soliciting and then evaluating possible solutions? Are you sure that you can obtain the money and the people to implement the most promising one? External constraints are just as important to evaluate, right? Are there issues concerning patents or intellectual property rights? Are there laws and regulations to be considered? Answering these questions may require consultation with other stakeholders. That might be when you would do some collaborating with some of your colleagues and other experts. So let's go to step 4, writing the actual problem statement. Here, we finally made it, see? Now it's not really time to write a full description of the problem you're seeking to solve and the requirements the solution must meet. The problem statement really just captures what the organization has learned through answering the question in the previous steps that we discussed through 1 through 3. It helps us establish somewhat of a consensus on what a viable solution would be and what resources would be required to achieve it. Now, a full, clear description can also help people both inside and outside the organization quickly grasp the issue, right? So this is especially important because, solutions to complex problems, in whatever industry or discipline often come from experts, in other fields. For example, the method for moving, oil from spills in the Arctic and subarctic waters from, collection barges to disposal tanks, that came from a chemist in the cement industry, who responded to the oil spill recovery institute's description of the problem in terms that were precise but not specific to, the petroleum industry. So it's good to kind of cross lines and work with other people, and that's the power and the importance of the problem statement. Others may look at it and see like, wow, I can definitely help here. Here are some questions that can help you kind of develop a thorough problem statement. So number one, is a problem actually many problems? The aim here is really to drill down to the root cause. I cannot say that enough. Complex, seemingly insoluble issues are much more approachable, especially when you break them down into discrete elements. And, we all know this, how do you eat an elephant? And of course, it's one bite at a time. Second, what requirements must a solution meet? Sometimes the solution doesn't need to be one that could be mass produced. It could be something that, local, kind of small scale, working with small businesses, entrepreneurs, or, other just sister organizations. Maybe it's something that they could do. Next question is, which problem solvers should we engage? So it's so important, it's enticing, to enlist as many experts, as possible outside the field as possible. But that's why it's important to understand the resources and people that you currently have, and seeing, okay, once you have this problem outlined, okay, who do we need to come in to help us to carry this all the way through, which is something we talked about earlier. And next, what information and language should the problem statement include? So to engage the largest number of solvers from the widest variety of fields, a problem statement must meet the twin goals of being extremely specific, but not unnecessarily technical. So it shouldn't contain industry or discipline jargon, or presupposed knowledge of a particular field. But it may and probably should have a summary of previous solution attempts and detailed requirements. So having these types of criteria in mind, it's so important to just be sure that you're being very clear and very concise in a way that, someone in other, expertise or fields can understand, as they might, have some type of solutions that would really help you. Next, what do solvers need to submit? So what information about the proposed solution does your organization need in order to invest in it? So, for example, would a well-founded hypothetical approach be sufficient, or is a full-blown prototype, needed? Next, what incentives do solvers need? The point of asking this question is to ensure that the right people are motivated to address the problem. For internal solvers, incentives can be written into job descriptions or offered as promotions and bonuses. And then for external solvers, the incentive might be, a cash award. How will solutions be evaluated and success measured? This is so important and so key to just my field of industrial organizational psychology. Addressing this question forces the organization to be explicit about how it will evaluate the solution it receives. Clarity and transparency are crucial to arriving at viable solutions and to ensuring that the evaluation process is fair and rigorous. So in some cases, we'll know it when we see it approach is reasonable. So for example, when a company is looking for, a new branding strategy, most of the time, however, it's a sign that earlier steps in the process have not been approached with sufficient rigor. That's where you go back to step one. So those are just the 4 steps, and those are just some ways that I decided to kind of unpack those for you. But I want you to really think about these things, rewind this if you need to. When you go into these meetings and you're really looking for the problem, use this worksheet as part of your agenda, as a way to get to the root of the problem. Who's going to be involved? Do you have the resources? Do you have the money to make sure that, and is this is this the actual problem, or is this, this is kind of like the surface, and we need to peel back some layers on this. So I hope this was very helpful for you. I'm really excited to see what you all have to say in the discussion this week. And I look forward to, once again, continuing on this consulting journey with you. Have an amazing, amazing day.